The Army's M4 replacement, called the M7, was just pulled from one of the Pentagon's most trusted independent testing programs, and that's raising some eyebrows, especially since some soldiers have publicly called out the rifle over issues. The next generation service rifle for the US Army fires a new caliber, it uses a new optic, and it's supposed to be the answer to concerns about range and lethality in American infantry weapons. Like many weapons programs, and we talk about a lot of them here, it hasn't had the smoothest path through procurement. The selection of Sig Sauer sparked debate, the new 6.8 by 5.1mm round raised questions about logistics and wear on the rifle, and there's been some soldier feedback that hasn't been glowing. But the Army insists that it is going to move forward with the most advanced small arms package that it's had ever. Welcome back to Task and Purpose. Thank you for being here with us today. I'm Kyle, and today we are going to talk about why the M7 was pulled from independent testing, what that could mean for service members, and what both the Army and watchdog groups are saying about it. But before that, let's talk about something just as important, and that is, of course, shaving, especially if you're in the military. Like many systems fielded for our troops, razors sold at the exchanges and forced upon you in basic training are outdated and can rip your face apart, leaving you with razor burn and ingrown hairs, even though they're expensive, packed with blades, and backed by the razor industrial complex. Henson razors are different though. They're precise, built to tolerances of just 0.0002 inches, which provides more control of the blade. The razors are machined at an aerospace machine shop for exacting quality to help reduce blade chatter and keep your skin not just inspection smooth and irritation free, but also clean. Henson also donates razors to service members suffering from pseudofolliculitis barbae, aka razor bumps, and it works with them in clinical research trials to get them the best shave possible. Whether you're active, reserve, a recipient of a DD-214, or just want a good shave without spending a ton of money, head to hensonshaving.com/taskandpurpose and use code taskandpurpose at checkout to get 100 free blades with your razor. That's code taskandpurpose. Just make sure that both the razor and the blades are in the cart. We want to thank Henson Shaving for sponsoring this episode. The M7, formerly known as the XM7, is the Army's replacement for the M4 carbine. Based on the Sig Sauer MCX Spear, it fires a new 6.8 by 5.1mm cartridge meant to provide better range and armor penetration than the 5.56 NATO round that entered service in 1964 when the XM16E1 hit the jungles of Vietnam. It's part of the Army's Next Generation Squad Weapon program, which also includes the M250, a new light machine gun meant to replace the M249 SAW, and it fires the same 6.8mm round. The M7 is still being evaluated and has been fielded to select units to do this. It is expected to become the standard rifle for close combat forces. Using a new optic called the Fire Control System, which uses sensors and onboard ballistic calculators, the rifle promises more accurate fire at longer ranges. This, according to officials and smart Pentagon people, will allow US soldiers to defeat enemy body armor from longer ranges with fewer shots, and theoretically not get pulled into close fights and trench-style warfare that we are seeing in Ukraine. It's being viewed as kind of a standoff weapon. The fewer shots part is pretty key since the ammo is larger than the 5.56. Soldiers won't be able to carry as much without hauling more weight around, and they've already got enough to haul around. They're going to need that accuracy to make up for the loss in volume of fire or ammo they can carry. This is a big shift in US small arms, the largest one since the M16 hastily replaced the M14 in the jungles of Vietnam just when it was starting to get really hot. That shift at that time was about trading power for volume, and this time it's kind of the reverse. And like that transition, it comes with growing pains, trade-offs, and a lot of unanswered questions. Getting this wrong could not only mean a multi-billion-dollar loss, but it could also mean dead soldiers. That might sound hyperbolic to some, but it was the case in Vietnam, and when we talk about these things, like the weapons and all the numbers, technical specifications, and all the other nerd stuff, we have to remember that countless young men and women in uniform don't get to argue about semantics in a firefight. They just need it to work. These aren't just numbers on a spreadsheet. These are weapons that soldiers, Marines, sailors, airmen, everybody puts their trust in, and that's important. In August of 2025, the M7 was removed from the Director Operational Testing and Evaluation Office's, or DOT&E's, oversight list along with about 100 other programs. This means that it will no longer be evaluated under the same independent standards that most major weapons programs face when they're not yet finalized. Though dozens of other programs were removed, the M7 stands out because of how important it is. It's going to become the Army's primary rifle. If it fails in combat, people die. And unlike a drone system or a radar upgrade, this is something that soldiers are going to carry every day in every fight. Removing this relatively new weapon from independent testing predictably attracted some attention. Watchdog groups and others immediately raised concerns. Greg Williams, a senior defense analyst at the Project on Government Oversight, told Task and Purpose that this decision means the weapon won't get enough testing that puts it through realistic combat scenarios or has oversight by an agency outside of the Army. That means fewer data points for the manufacturer to make improvements and for Congress to demand improvements, and just less transparency for the public overall, who are the ones who fund all this. The irony is that DOT&E was created in large part because of the M16 disaster. Now the M4 replacement won't be under its watch, the one that was kind of started to make sure we didn't repeat the same mistakes with the M16. To be fair though, just because it was dropped from DOT&E doesn't mean it's going to fail, but it could mean that certain things will fall through the cracks, and it may not be as good as it could be as quickly as it could be that good. It might be confusing. We'll move past it. The DOT&E was created by Congress in the 1980s after not just the M16, but a series of weapons procurement disasters, including, of course, the M16. Back then, rifles jammed, corroded, and malfunctioned in combat. Soldiers died with cleaning rods jammed in the chamber, just trying to get their weapons to work. The problem wasn't just the weapon, it was the lack of realistic testing and training before fielding. Congress eventually stepped in and did their job and created DOT&E to make sure major weapons programs actually worked before being fielded. That's a crazy idea that I really hope whoever came up with it got a raise, or at least a letter of appreciation and a nice firm handshake. Simply put, the DOT&E is a check on military branches and contractors, and it's done real work over the years. Take the F-35 for example. DOT&E has flagged issues across multiple variants for a decade plus. These included software bugs in the mission systems, logistical failures with the A-list maintenance system, sensor fusion problems, and even on the F-35A's, accuracy issues with the guns. These weren't just minor hiccups, they were big issues that delayed full-rate production and led to costly redesigns, but it ultimately made the F-35 a better and more reliable platform. Or consider the Marine Corps' Expeditionary Fighting Vehicle, the EFV. DOT&E testing in the 2000s showed it was mechanically unreliable, broke down frequently, and had insufficient protection against improvised explosive devices. The program was ultimately canceled in 2011 after more than $3 billion had already been spent. The Navy's Littoral Combat Ship is another example. DOT&E raised early concerns that it wasn't survivable in high-end fights, the ship's modular mission packages routinely failed to meet performance goals, and its anti-submarine and mine countermeasures capabilities were severely lacking. Those concerns were dismissed for years until the Navy started retiring LCS hulls after barely 5 years in service. Today, as we recently covered, in large part because of those DOT&E reports, the LCS is functioning as a mine hunter as it was originally intended, and has even taken on Houthi drones and missiles in the Red Sea using modular launchers. DOT&E has also flagged issues in other programs like the JLTV's poor visibility and crew ergonomics, the V-22 Osprey's high maintenance burden, and the Missile Defense Agency's optimistic performance claims for THAAD, Aegis, and others that just did not match operational reality. The office is not perfect, it can and often does miss things, and its recommendations are sometimes ignored, although that's not their fault. But it is one of the few places in the Pentagon where politics and promotion potential seem to take a backseat to data, since it is technically independent and doesn't answer to any branch or contractor. Yeah, I know what some of you out there are thinking, that there's just no way that the DOT&E is actually unbiased, but their reports are some of the most comprehensive and sometimes ruthless ones out there. They really do seem to put getting the best products to the service members ahead of anything else, and even if it is a little biased, it's at least better than the individual branches being left to their own devices. But if you want to go on thinking that everything is corrupt, who am I to stop you? And if I'm being honest, I can't really offer too much evidence that everything isn't corrupt. The Army says that removing the M7 from independent testing is not a problem. According to officials, the M7 has already undergone extensive testing. That includes live fire evaluations, cold weather testing, airborne drops, hot weather, and soldier touch points at different places in the kill chain. Different units, different levels, anyway. DOT&E staff were present for some of these tests, and the Army published an early fielding report in June of 2024 that reflects test results from these efforts. There's also more testing scheduled. The Army plans to run tropic environment evaluations in fiscal year 2026, just starts at the end of this month, and says the Army Evaluation Center will continue running independent assessments outside of the DOT&E framework. That's a little confusing that the Army's Evaluation Center will be conducting independent tests on an Army weapon. Just gotta say it. Tropic testing in particular seems like a pretty big deal, as the Army eyes an expanded role in the Indo-Pacific, and the Trump administration seemingly prioritizes regional concerns like Venezuela over Europe and the Middle East and elsewhere. From the Army's perspective, DOT&E oversight was just plain redundant. They've already gathered data, the rifle performed well, and removing it from the list just streamlines the bureaucracy. In the eyes of the Army, it's not about avoiding scrutiny, it's about saving time and getting the weapon into the hands of the soldiers who need it. And to be fair, that may be true. It's possible that this rifle is being unfairly lumped in with other programs that may have been removed from oversight for more dubious reasons. There's also the reality that a lot of the discourse around the M7 takes place on social media and YouTube, and this has the potential to skew the reality of what is actually happening and provide some people with confirmation bias. Even if the Army's internal testing is rigorous, pulling the M7 from DOT&E still sends, at least to some people, a message saying, just trust us guys, come on, when have we ever let you down? But that's exactly what led to disaster with the M16. That's what led to flawed systems like the LCS being fielded too early. DOT&E isn't just a check in the box. It's an external review process designed to catch what insiders miss or ignore, either willingly or otherwise. You can't wargame every scenario, but you can stress test equipment in ways that simulate how it will fail. Because eventually, if it moves or does anything of note, it will fail. And if you haven't found those weak points beforehand, that failure happens in the field, in combat with lives on the line. And there are still a lot of legitimate open questions about the M7. How will the heavier 6.8mm ammo affect soldier load and endurance? Will the rounds increase muzzle pressure, reduce longevity? How will it hold up in mud, heat, jungle, and cold when issued widely and not in controlled test environments? These are questions DOT&E is specifically designed to answer. Removing them from the equation doesn't necessarily mean the answers will be bad. It just means that we may not know until it's too late. No one is saying that the M7 is a bad rifle. By most accounts, it's accurate, powerful, and technologically advanced. Troops who have used it in testing environments generally report positive impressions overall. But removing it from independent oversight at this stage is a risky move, not because it proves anything is wrong, but because it removes a key layer of accountability that helps prove nothing is wrong if that's the case. If the Army is confident in the M7, that's great. But confidence isn't the same as certainty. That's what independent testing is for. And if the Army's internal tests are as good as they say, why not just keep it under DOT&E and prove all the haters and losers, of which there are many, wrong? I wrote this script and Savvy edited the video. Today I am wearing a Claymore Mine patent t-shirt. It's just the Claymore Mine patent put on a t-shirt. It doesn't say front towards enemy because that wasn't in the original patent. They probably figured that out the hard way. But if you like it, go to store.taskandpurpose.com, use code ACTUALLYWATCH to get 10% off. Go ahead, leave us a comment, concerns, anything like that. I just want to say once again, thank you everyone for your support. We're working really hard behind the scenes to get this to be a much better product for you all. I've been doing things like keeping ads out. I don't let YouTube put the ads in. I try to only put like 2 YouTube or however you want to call them ads in. So we lose a little bit of revenue on that, but it's about like making a good product that people want to consume. We want to be the product, not a bunch of ads. So I appreciate that. I appreciate all the patience and everything else. I'm going to shut up. I'm Kyle, your friendly ginger producer man. You are all dismissed, and I will see you next time.